only 66% water. I just said that. Keep up. No, what that is to say, with 95% of our brains and 100% of our DNA being water constructs. As human, the only way to discover our intellect's full maturation is based on experiencing consistent changes in our environmental conditions that unlock various forms of adaptations contained within our DNA. Our bloodline holds all experiences and memories from our forefathers and are passed directly to their offspring generationally until the last male of the direct bloodline dies. Until then, all encounters of our sires past, be it warriors, slaves, kings, commoners, criminals, engineers, masons, philosophers, architects, or Shaolin monks, they're all residing in you. They're all residing in your DNA. Have you ever been in a situation where a new problem presented itself and you somehow just knew how to resolve it without having any previous experience with it? Or so you thought. This is a small example of how a new element being introduced into your environment causing a change in normal presumptions, unlocking what you've perceived as a new thought, when in reality, it was the engagement of a passed on, undestroyed DNA inherent memory within you, that if your environment had not changed, that DNA strand would have yet remained dormant otherwise, ever floating atop of its inertias for potential. They moved what little furniture was in the living room to create an open square area. And it was within that area that everyone had to fight. And the last one standing had the privilege of sleeping in that spot near the kitchen. I was only 7 years old, and there was not 1 ounce of compassion for it. They shoved me in the middle, and one of my older cousins gave full swing and punched me in the face so hard that everything went numb. I felt myself flipping over a foot cushion, and in that moment of numbness, the world slowed to show me the realities of my current situation. Before my rollover completed, I knew that this was not about the sleeping area, that this was about survival, primitive pack dominance, and where your place was in it. And that was all it took for me to understand that, and I crossed over before my second foot touched the ground. I was up, I located my cousin who hit me, and I launched back at him with every force of hell in my little body that I could muster. And he grabbed me as I was midair and flung me to the other side of the room like I was nothing. And when I landed, I went right back at him again, as he was occupied by Rona, who had attacked him after he had flung me. I fought him and everyone in that apartment except for Rona. It went on for hours, and so it would each night until an order of dominance was established, in an order in which I had no idea where I came in. In times when we weren't fighting each other, I was taught that nothing was going to be given to you here. If you wanted something, you had to take it. I was taught how to steal everything from bikes to food, where to go if the police ever chased us, and to put my fighting skills to the test. They would place bets on us and make us fight other kids in the building purely for sport. These fights would take place in the open walkways, back alleys. They'd even stop the elevators and throw me and whoever else in and make us fight until only one of us made it out. And for fighting incentive, my cousins, that if I lost and they lost their money, they would beat me and my sister's ass that night. All of this, but this was still all the build-up towards everything. The real breaking point for our family came due to the infamous .44 caliber killer. Throughout 1976 and 1977, the son of Sam became known for using a special .44 caliber bulldog revolver, which he used to claim the lives of 6 people and wounded 7 others. He went as far as to leave notes in the places he struck for the police to find. In the notes, he teased the police and those in power and promised more murders. He was arrested in late 1977 when he pled guilty to all of the murders and claimed that his actions were motivated by the manifestation in the form of a demon in the shape of his neighbor's dog, Sam. What we learned later on was that this cold-hearted killer was residing on Burke Avenue, our block. That was it for my mother. She decided, and I am eternally grateful for it, to sell off everything she had at that time for plane tickets to a place far away from New York as possible. By early 1980s, we found ourselves in Dallas, Texas. Dallas is where my mother met Philip Odell Williamson, the first man to have a reasonable impact on my life. The first person to show me a better life. The first person to show me that there were good characteristics to look forward through my rage. The man who changed my life forever. Even though he was my stepfather, he's probably the only man that I can truly recognize as a father figure in my life. When I first met him, he took me to his house in Garland. Just that moment itself was a hilarious shock for me. It was hilarious because it was not just hard, but almost impossible for me to imagine at that time a black man with a house. Just that thought alone was foreign to me because I had grown up seeing things much differently, especially in the context of my race. It was at this house that I met my stepbrother, Sean Kelly. Sean had his own room. Again, that blew my mind. I had become so used to my life shift towards taking pledges to the supremacy of the white race and to the opposition of the amalgamation of races. The very amalgamation of races that built this nation in the first place. Like I said, it's more relevant to call the Klan a cult because it required for its members to take part in strange rituals which were conducted by wearing white robes with a white mask, 2 holes cut for eyelids, and a white pointy hat. In the 80s, the Klan became notoriously known for its assault on young black men as a means to spread the terror of the Klan, although there were obviously racial grounds to it as well. This was the case of it in Texas as well. All throughout Dallas, they left their presence of intimidation and power, and their symbols have become recognizable to all. They would hold private meetings in sleepy downtown districts in the middle of the night to devise plans to take over the city and formulate ways to leave their mark throughout it. They succeeded, at least in the latter. One of their known symbols was leaving burning crosses all throughout public parks. Their intimidation was one of the main reasons as to why so few stories about racial uprising during the civil rights movement were told coming out of Dallas, Texas. However, imagine if I told you that there was something worse than the presence of an entire white supremacist cult, because there was. The second form of institutionalized racism, and the second reason for the lack of stories regarding the civil rights movement fostering out of Dallas, came in the shape of a man who went by the name of Henry Wade. In my time, he was famously known for his mantra of convict at all costs, through which the district attorney ruled over Texas for an unprecedented amount of 36 years. The simple words, in a simple matter of seconds, triggered a disastrous chain of events. Listening to her words echoing through the walls pierced me in places I could never have imagined. I was unaware that such feelings existed. I could not process the words that were coming out of her mouth, and I could not help but think, does she know what she's saying? Does she know what she's saying to my wife? The implication of her words and the profoundness of the life-shattering events that this child was describing all happening in a matter of moments, according to her. This caused my brain to freeze into a place as I tried to make sense of what she was saying. I felt my gut swirling with these accusations as the ground beneath me shifted from its very plates. I gazed deep into the hollow of my wife's eyes that were brimmed with accusations insinuated by the words of the child as she asked me in a toned down but a deeply haunting voice, "What did you do?" I had never heard that tone in her voice before, ever in my life, and it scared me. It was deep, dark, and disturbingly calm, like the sea before a storm, ready to break out and wreak havoc upon everything in its path. There was no way I could stop what was taking place that night, what was happening right in front of my eyes, in my very home, in my very place of solitude.